We're here in Miller Place, one of the beautiful communities that make up Brookhaven Town. And the name Miller Place did not just come. We're actually at the house whose family this community is named after. We're at the William Miller House. The Miller family, started by William Miller's grandfather, who was born in 1632 in England, emigrated here to the United States when he was 11 years old, became a cooper, which is a barrel maker in East Hampton, and then moved to what is now Miller Place, bought some land. It was called Old Man's then, in 1670. And then built a house very much near that pond on North Country Road that you see by the bend when you take it. And he built his house here. And he had a son, Andrew Jr., who then had a son, William Miller. This house, and we are in the William Miller house, is one of the older houses still in existence in Brookhaven Town. It is the nameplate of Miller Place. This house, the original section, the middle section, which I think we're in now,
Yes.
was built in 1720. Another house was attached to it in 1750. And then another house on the east side was attached in 1860. This house was saved by the Mount Sinai Miller Place Historical Society, which purchased the house in 1979, did extensive renovations, and got it listed on the National Register. Joining me today at this historic house is our councilwoman, Jane Bonner, who represents this area, very familiar with this house, and Edna Davis Griffin. Giffen. Sorry, I have to say that correctly. But Edna is a member of the Historical Society, and she has done a yeoman's job, along with all the members of the society, in not only trying to preserve this house, but to keep it going. That's an expensive operation.
Edna's also a Davis,
Yes.
a long-time historical name and synonymous with Long Island. And she's a proud member of the Historical Society, and she's also a docent at the house here itself when they run tours. And she dresses up in period costume and is incredibly authentic at what she does. So thank you, Edna.
Well,
I'm going to turn this over to Jane and to Edna at this point.
So we're here at the Miller House with a special edition of Coffee with the Supervisor. Coffee with the Supervisor.
And Councilwoman.
On the road. Coffee with the Supervisor on the road. We wanted to spotlight this particular house because it needs a new roof, quite frankly, and it needs some other renovations. And it doesn't get the recognition, the attention, or the notoriety that it deserves, regardless of how hard the Miller Place Mount Sinai Historical Society works to bring attention and light to it. You know, we live in a society that doesn't understand or doesn't have respect for the history of Long Island and the way our communities were settled, especially along the North Shore. So we're very fortunate and very blessed that the little hamlets that make up the North Shore, especially Miller Place, that has the Miller House, from which the community was named after, and we have a Miller Place Historical Society member and a docent of the house here to be able to educate us about the house itself, the kind of family that lived in it, the things that they did on this property, and exactly the kind of work that this house needs, that we're hoping that the viewers of Channel 18 can help provide some necessary donations to make this house better, but still accurate and authentically historic. So what do you have to offer us today, Edna?
well, I'll tell you about this, go beyond this for the house. It was built in 1720 by William Miller. He and his wife, Deliverance, had 6 children. When they built this, they just had a little room, these 2 little rooms back here, and this major room with a cooking fireplace.
6 children in these 2 rooms.
Oh, yes, yes.
Must have been a very close family.
Very close. They had plastered the walls, but the ceiling they didn't plaster. They just whitewashed it. Their oldest son decided to go to Jersey, and he went and moved to New Jersey, and he unfortunately drowned on a ferry between Staten Island and New Jersey. So then second son Timothy was going to inherit the property. So when he got married to Experience Davis, who lived in Old Man's, they moved in here. So there were 6 adults and a 9-year-old of William Miller's. So that's when they decided it was time to expand the building. And
1750?
He got married in 1745. So the 6 of them, the 7 of them were actually living in here, this room.
And then they added the west.
And they added the west, yes. They added the west wing, yes.
And Edna's going to take us on a tour in a little bit so you could see all the different rooms and artifacts in the house.
So they added that by bringing a house from down the street. The tradition is that it was down by Pipe Stave Hollow somewhere, and it was dragged up here, the outside wall taken off, and the two met. And we'll be able to see some of that on the tour. Timothy stayed in here, then his son took over, and he kept on going, and he decided to add the east room.
In 1816.
In 1816, again, it was another house that they found elsewhere that was not being used, and they dragged it up and took the outside wall off and attached it.
They have to worry about building permits.
In those
the
days,
original
no.
recyclers.
Yes, yes. That used to be a window. You can see a window off to the side. That was an early window. When they added the east side, they opened up the window and made it into a door. And then they also, when they added the west wing, the west house was bigger than this house. So they actually backed this wall out and raised the roof so that they could meet.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, and that's all visible upstairs.
So and William Miller, when you have his grandfather, Andrew Miller Sr., he was born in England, 1632. Came here when he was 11, worked in East Hampton, and then moved here in 1670. Remember, the town was founded, the first settlers, 1655, so it's only 15 years after this town was settled that Andrew built his house near the pond. Then his son, Andrew Jr., who died a year before he died, and then eventually William Miller, who comes here in 1720 and builds the first part of what would be 3 parts of this house.
Yes.
It is one of the older houses that we have that still survives in the town. Great work by the Historical Society. How much is that new roof that this building needs?
It's going to be a minimum of $20,000 to put a new wood roof on. The present one was put on in the 90s, so it's already exceeded its lifetime.
Useful life.
And before that, there was a tin roof over the previous wood roof. So when we took the tin roof and the other wood roof off, that's when we put the new wood roof on.
Edna, what would be the historically accurate roof to put on?
A wood shingle
A wood
roof.
shingle.
Yes,
shingle.
a wood shingle roof.
Okay.
And they, of course, don't last as long as asbestos shingles.
Right, correct.
So you've got to be changing that out every so often.
Right.
So let's say I was listening to this program and I said, wow, I live near Miller Place, I've driven past the house, really inspired. Is there a fund that people can contribute to?
Yes, we have a roof fund that we established, and you can contact the Historical Society. We do have a website. If you put in either Miller Place Historical Society or Mount Sinai Historical Society, the website is right there.
And we'll provide that to the viewers with a graphic at the bottom of the screen when this airs on Channel 18. We should also mention that maybe 6 weeks or 2 months ago, Newsday did a newspaper article regarding, I contacted the local reporter, the Brookhaven reporter for Newsday, and Newsday did a nice article regarding the historic house and some of the needs that it has, and they've been able to raise some money, but Edna received a really good phone call or a meeting with a resident regarding how they wanted to help fundraise for the roof. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Edna?
All right. The day the article appeared, in the afternoon, I received a phone call from a resident in Mount Sinai who wanted to donate to the roof fund. And this person is willing, he's giving a challenge that for every $2 the society raises, he will give $1 up to $10,000.
Wow.
On that subsequent Sunday, I was talking to one of our members of the society about the need for a new roof and about this challenge, and he and his wife donated a $1,000 check.
So all that from one article.
One article.
So we're hoping money flows from the heavens
Right.
with the Channel 18 segment.
Right. We also had this young
Yes,
8th grader,
yes.
Jack Saldano, who saw the article, and he decided he's participated in some of the events we've had here since he was young, and he decided to raise some money. He's going to be selling comic books that his grandfather gave him at the Heritage Park rummage sale that they have every Thursday, and he also has an online that he does, and then any of the money he raises this summer will go towards our
Will be
roof fund.
donated toward the roof. So a little bit, many hands make light work.
Correct.
And a big thanks to yourself and all the members of the Historical Society for making sure that our history is preserved, for making sure that this building was restored back in the 80s, making sure that it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and that for a long time to come, people will come. And we may not live the way that the Millers lived, 200-300 years ago, but this is a good representation of early Brookhaven and the settlers that settled here that helped form the communities that we now live in.
15 years after Brookhaven came into existence.
Right.
Absolutely.
So this is very timely. So why don't we take a tour?
Yeah,
Edna can
absolutely.
show us around the different rooms and how they were added on and what they were used for.
We are in the east room at this point. This is the front room, and this was the last house that was added in 1816. What it was functioning as, we don't really know, but the small rooms in the back were used by Dr. Millard as his office. Dr. Millard was from Delhi and New York, and he went to New York City to practice surgery. He met Charlotte Miller, who lived across the street, and they married. He went off to the Civil War. She came out here with the kids. And they stayed with her parents over there. He came out after the Civil War, and he lived over there but practiced over here. So we have some of his instruments from when he practiced during the Civil War. We have his saddlebags that was given to him by some appreciative patients in that time frame. The ceiling, as you notice, is peeling, and that is because the blue is calcimine paint. Calcimine paint is chalk, and nothing will stick to it. So even though it was attempted with certain materials to make it stick, the paint doesn't stick. So it's slowly coming down. Eventually we'll have to wash, when we get a chance, we'll have to wash the calcimine paint off, and then we'll be able to paint it.
Okay.
And Millard was the last person to own this house was Henry Miller, right?
Harry Millard.
Harry Millard.
Yes.
And he was the last
Lineal
direct
descendant.
lineal descendant of William Miller. And it was from them that you bought this house in 1979 to preserve it.
Correct.
Edna, what was this room used for? What do you think?
It could have been a parlor, or it could have been just a place, a family room type thing, because we have the fancier furniture in the west room, which would have been the parlor.
Right. And I see you have some authentic artifacts that the Millers actually used, like this 1875 baby carriage.
Right, and we actually there are postcards of one of either Elila Miller or her sister Grace sitting in this on North Country Road.
Wow.
This really is a great carriage to push because the wheels are so big, they go over any rut, any hole that you could find. But again, you have to be pretty big to sit in that and stay
To
there.
sit up straight.
And North Country Road was a
Dirt road
at
at
that
time. Yes, that was a dirt road at
And
that time.
safety experts should note that there's no straps. There's nothing to strap the baby in, nothing
Right.
to hold the baby in,
Right.
or anything like that. Different times than 1875.
So that was good. This is a print from the house. It still has the number that we put on it when the house was being assessed for artifacts, and it's the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And it's quite a beautiful thing to have in this house. This is the west room, or the west part of the house. It is a separate house, as I said before. This was added in 1750. It was this room and the two rooms behind us. This was a fancier house than the William Miller house itself. You can see by the woodwork, the detail of the woodwork that is there, just that it was larger. There are a couple of pictures on the wall that were taken when we bought the house, but before we took everything out. And the one on the right actually shows where Harry had his refrigerator. And the refrigerator stood in the hallway right behind the Dutch doors. I didn't see that until 2 years ago, even though I've been looking in that picture for 30 years. I just noticed the refrigerator there.
Now, was this house built the same time as the other houses that were added on, do you think?
This one was built around 1730, according to Zach Studenroth. He was one of the architectural surveyors that did this house, he and Frank Matero, back in '79. And their report is that this was 1730.
Okay.
The 1816 edition was, they think, about 1780, 1790 originally, before it was added.
So the middle section and the west section were built long before the Revolution came.
Right, right.
And the eastern section was built a little bit after the American Revolution.
Correct.
So all the periods of history at that time.
What's interesting about the fact that they added this section, they added it in 1750. In 1759, the Suffolk County Militia was called up to go up and fight the French and Indian War up the Hudson. So Captain Thomas Terry from Southold, he was in charge of the troop. He came this way, west. He was going to Setauket, and he was picking up troops as he went. He actually stayed in this house.
Oh, okay.
While he brought his recruits together. So that meant the family had to move into one of the sections. We're presuming it's this section because we had someone who studied Captain Terry, and he took over the main room in the middle room. So, and this was convenient for the women who did the cooking and the men who wanted to go out the back, because this pantry connects to the kitchen. This is the bedroom that's in the west end of the house. You can see it's much smaller. It has a rope bed. The rope bed would have had a layer of maybe corn stalks or wheat, whatever, in a ticking and put over there, and then they would have put a feather mattress or a feather quilt over it. Down here you can see is a trundle bed. This was a bed for children. You could sleep at least 2, maybe 3 children in here, and during the day it went under the bed and out of the way.
Edna, why don't you tell me what this interesting room is? It has all sorts of accessories that are very appealing to the eye, especially the Crocs. I collect Crocs, so.
Well, this is the pantry of the West House. The shelving is original. The different tools here date from the 1800s and a few from the 1900s. You can see the different pots,
cast iron, cooking over the fire.
These would have been used on a stove as opposed to the fireplace.
Right.
The fireplace ones we have in the next room. We have different bottles from different things here that could be bought in a store. We have boxes, and these
tins.
And tins. Some of them are original to the house, but as far as somebody using them that lived in the house, but also they were donated. We have a few objects, this one in particular, that nobody knows what it is. We don't know what it is. Anybody who comes in and looks like it might be some kind of refrigeration type thing, but we're not sure.
So Edna, it looks like we're in the kitchen.
Yes, we are. We just came through the pantry into the kitchen. This was the kitchen when the middle room, what we call the middle house, and the west house were added. The cooking fireplace in either one of them was taken out and moved to back here. So we have the fireplace here. Now the fireplaces were actually removed in about the 1890s because they weren't very heat worthy. The heat all went up the chimney.
Yes, they're very drafty fireplaces. They're not energy efficient, we would say today.
No, not at all. So this was just a small alcove, essentially. In the 1990s, it was decided to put the fireplaces back in, and we did that. And we could actually do it to where it used to be because the outline was still on the floor. The bake oven is there, and it has been used a couple of times. The materials are here. They are mostly donated. There is one that a couple of them have been here. This is what you call a reflector oven. Can cook chicken or meat on that. We cooked chicken on that in the past, and it comes out very well.
I'm
it's
sure,
nice
very
and
juicy.
It is juicy. Self-basting.
So Edna, why don't you tell me what this is?
Okay, this is a butter churn. It is a rocker butter churn. It would go back and forth like this. This is the Davis butter churn of Vermont. In the 19th century, there were people making all sorts of tools and instruments to make housework easier. And
now we buy our butter in the store.
We buy our butter in the store. This one they would have been able to rock instead of using the one with the up and down paddle.
Yeah.
This one is missing its lid because it was actually used as a planter before it was donated to the society.
So Edna, why don't you tell us what this building is? I know it has a special part of the Miller Place history and continues to live on with a couple of fundraising things that you do here.
Right.
One big special one that you do every year.
Right. This is the Samuel H. Miller Post Office. It was originally located down on the southwest corner of Sylvan Avenue and North Country Road. Samuel H. Miller is descended from this house. He used this from 1901 till 1913, 1910 when he was postmaster, and then he gave it to his daughter and she moved it across the street. And in 1937 it was converted to a bungalow so that somebody could live in it, and it was lived in. After Irma Tuttle died, her sister donated this building to the Historical Society in 1984, and it was moved to the property. What we have now is in the first weekend in December, the first Sunday in December, we have what's known as Postman Pete. It is where the children come and they have letters to Santa, and they bring it here, and we have a man who plays, whose name is Peter, and he plays a postman. He has a costume on of a postmaster from the early 1900s, and he stamps their letter, and then they get a response from Santa.
It's really a wonderful fundraiser. It's very quaint, it's very homey, and it's small town America right here in Miller Place.
Right, and we've had kids from all over, and we have refreshments in the house, and we have the Miller Place High School choral group here singing Christmas carols, so it's a lot of fun that everybody has.
It's wonderful that you continue to keep the tradition alive. And I noticed some other buildings in the back. Why don't you tell the people that are watching what the rest of these buildings are?
The next building is the barn. It is from the Cherub Farm that was down on North Country Road, just south of Echo. The Miller Place Road, south of Echo.
Yes.
It was donated to the society by the developers, and it was brought here. It was rebuilt. And inside is a collection of farm tools from the 1800s to the 20th century.
So Edna, here we are in the barn with all barn implements and other things that you would find in a barn if you were a miller living back in the day.
Right.
Why don't you describe some of the things that are in here for the viewers that are watching?
Okay. This is a cow. It was made by one of our members, and we put it outside and fill the udder with water so the kids can practice milking a cow. It is one of the things that they truly enjoy doing. The corn sheller that I talked about earlier is here. And this they will be able to use as well. We have all different pitchforks of all kinds.
And the yoke.
We have cattle yokes,
Be careful.
nice pitchfork.
And the different types of baskets and the carriage that would be pulled by horses.
Farm wagon that you can actually put extra seats in if needed. So we have the different leather goods up here. We have some of the different collars, the horse collars, a feeding bag. We actually have an army saddle over here from would have been the 19th century. We have different types of bags to show that with the potato bags, here is a Prechtel's bag from when they used paper, and then we have the manufactured one of material, burlap, that we could use, and that's what we have hanging from the roof also. We have burlap of different kinds.
And this piece of equipment behind you.
This is something for the kids to do too. They can saw the wood. It's a two-man saw if they want it, and we put this outside at our country fair, and they were able to use this. Over behind it is the box that's actually used to hold the corn for the kids to be able to play with the trucks and the other vehicles that we have.
And all sorts of wrenches and tools, and this barn is chock full of artifacts and history. You could spend the whole day in here and probably not get through everything.
Correct.
It's so important that you've kept so many pieces of history for, quite selfishly, the Second Council District, because so much of the Second Council District was farmland and now it's houses. So it's very heartwarming to see so many pieces of the original equipment of what it was like to live on the North Shore of Long Island. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.